on the phone, it wasn't.
Yeah.
To bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, I do
it's
love
shadowing.
the view, but I wonder if it's the. Is there a blind there?
Yeah. How's that?
Yeah. That's nice.
Okay. We're working with the elements. Okay, we are live. Here we go. Rock and roll. So,
what's up, tell us?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting and inspiring episode of On Location with Zara. I'm your host, Zara Durrani, and it's been a pleasure producing and hosting this show for you, bringing inspiring locals who are making a positive impact in our communities. And this is our last week of live streaming here. I'm very grateful to TELUS and Story Hive for helping produce our show over here. And joining me is someone who I have known for quite some time. I ran into him like a week ago and we talked about doing coffee. And in Vancouver, when you say we'll meet for coffee, that means like probably in another year. So we decided we're not going to be those folks. We're going to actually make it happen. And we met up yesterday and I knew he would make an amazing guest on our show because he has truly some remarkable stories of doing work, not just in Vancouver, but like all around the world. And I feel very inspired to hear some of the stories that I heard yesterday. And I know that you'll dig into them today. So I'm talking about Wade Jordan Wade. But your real name is Jordan.
My real name is Jordan Asher Samuel Stanley Wade. Yes, all five of those
It's
names.
a mouthful.
And for a long time, socially, I've just kind of gone by Wade. It's the last name people like to say. And admittedly, in traveling circles, I've just said Wade. And then in academic and work circles, I've gone by Jordan. My mom called me Jordan, so that's kind of when I'm in responsible, sober, focused mode, I'm Jordan. And over the years, the Jordan and the Wade roles have kind of got meshed together. I'll meet people and they'll meet me as Jordan, but then we start hanging out socially, so I become known as Wade. And I had a friend suggest, why don't you just go as Wade, Jordan, Wade, mash them together. And it's, you know what, I'm kind of like 2 parts Wade, 1 part Jordan anyways, because there's a lot of like fun flowiness despite the serious focused core.
Amazing. So the one thing that's really important to talk about in the introduction for Wade Jordan Wade, is that he's an award-winning journalist, community reporter. He has covered Olympics like all around the world, starting out in 2010 in Vancouver. And right now he's prepping for Paris Olympics, and he has stories to share from Sochi, London, Korea, like Rio.
Yeah, well, and Vancouver.
And Vancouver.
I
said you started in Vancouver.
Tick, nice.
So he's literally like, I feel like I've done most of my work in like fashion and entertainment, and you're like the male version of me. You know?
I'm the yang to your yang.
Yeah, you're like the. So we've also been working on another show. And, we won't talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. We can't talk about that now? Okay.
Well, the show is called, I'll talk about your show.
Okay.
He's been working for the last 10 years, reporting on community events. And we originally met at the Rogers Arena, like back in
2015.
Wow, great memory. And he was telling me yesterday in November, and that's the first year that Ted came to Vancouver. And I saw you were doing all these interviews behind the scenes, and I was doing the same thing. And I was like, who is this guy? And you had this Novus, microphone, and you were going, and you're all over in the community. From what I love about the way you report is you get so engaged in what you're doing, which I just find so much more entertaining than someone just showing up and being like, this is a thing that's happening, versus you're actually doing the thing. I think that's what's amazing about the way you report, because it's not even just reporting, it's storytelling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been, if we can mention Novus TV, we just said it. Novus Community TV. I've been a host, reporter, producer for, I can't believe it's been almost 10 years, but it has. And it's been a great, I've been involved in a few other things in Vancouver, but it's been a great kind of consistent media platform. And when it comes to the events, by the way, am I to be looking at you or
We can do both.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to the events, you know, even before I was hosting for Novus, I used to work in radio, and I always wanted to go to the events. I always wanted to go to and like take part in the events. And I used to work in radio, and I would like literally call in. I would call the station and say, "Oh, here we are at this local fair." I did it in Toronto. I did it in Kelowna. I did it in Squamish, and so I've always been keen on events, the energy, people gathering together, and so it was kind of a natural extension of my personality. So when I'm at the events, it's not like, okay, I've got to work here. I'm in working mode. I'm just kind of in fun-loving, happy-go-lucky, natural curiosity mode. And I think it's awesome. I get to usually chat with the event organizer, and I usually have enough creative freedom that I can kind of pick out 2 or 3 other people, whether it be like a feature artist, if it's like a music event, or a feature performer at some other kind of performance event, or just like interesting people in the crowd. And I get a chance to like put the mic in front of them and let them just share their perspective. And it's a really like exciting role, because people are usually they get the odd shy one who's like, they know they're the PR person, but they don't like being on camera. But 90% of the time, people are excited to share their enthusiasm for what they're doing. So I'm grateful to Novus and Vancouver and all the amazing events that happen in the city, because it's really been a phenomenal opportunity for me to do what I love.
And it's just so amazing to get out there, and especially I feel after 2020, to be in the community, to get this real live experience of like people coming together. And whether you hear musicians or anyone else, we see people gathering. Like I was at this Latin festival, we were filming there, and a couple of weeks ago, like last weekend, and just you felt like you were transported. Like you're not in Vancouver anymore, because the organizers, the PR folks, they said to me, our mission was to actually transport people into a Latin version of Disney World. So it's not even that we want people to forget about their worries and just have fun and let loose. And there's live music, there's like kids arena, and like you're learning to dance and capoeira. And I'm like, yes, there's so many beautiful, positive things that are happening in the city that we get to be a part of. So with everyone who comes on the show, I like to backtrack. And hear about the story of how this started, because this desire to share stories, to talk to people, did you always know that this is something that you wanted to do? Were you always a very extroverted kid? Did you know that you're going to go on this path of becoming a journalist or studying journalism?
I thank you. I'm actually, I love you're asking these questions, because it's a chance to, I'm like,
reflect.
I'm a pretty sentimental guy, so I get to be sentimental while reflecting on this. And I haven't actually shared this in a while, because I've just been doing it now for 10 years. But I loved radio. I was obsessed with radio as a kid, and I thought radio was my destiny. To the point that I ended up moving out west from Toronto to work in radio. I actually worked in radio in Toronto, in like a community reporter. Like that's what I mentioned earlier. I'd go to the events, I'd call the station, I'd give a quick little 45-second, hey, we're here at this thing. Although my voice had developed at that point. I don't know, I'm doing that high voice. me in 2008, we're here at this thing. No. So then I came out west, and I did radio and television arts at Ryerson in Toronto, but I knew that I wanted to do more with my education. So after I traveled a bit, I scratched the itch on traveling. I spent a bunch of time in Australia. I lived in Australia for a couple of years. I taught English in Korea. I lived in Korea for a year. I backpacked all through Southeast Asia. And when I came back home to Canada...
Very Sagittarius of you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's Sagittarius through and through. When I came back home to Canada, I was... basically 29. I was like, I'm going to be 30 soon, and time to get focused on my career. And that's kind of what led me down the radio path. I'm telling this a little bit opposite order. But I knew that if I wanted to do more than just be like the community reporter in Toronto, they always say in radio, you have to go to a smaller market to kind of, to like put in your reps, so to speak. And so I decided that rather than just going to some small town in Ontario, I'm from Toronto originally, I wanted to come out west I actually had done a tour guiding gig 4 years earlier where I got a chance to, like, I was living here in Vancouver for the summer, and I got a little sample of life in BC, and I think if I'm going to do a radio thing, I want to like do it out west.
Yeah.
So again, I traveled the world, came back home. I was in Toronto doing this radio gig for a year, and I thought, okay, no, let's take this next level. So I flew to Edmonton of all places, and I brought a bunch of resumes, and I did like a 2-week road trip from Edmonton all the way to Victoria, just handing out resumes as I went.
You just have like adventure in your bones.
Totally.
Like you just like everything. How can I make it into like an adventure?
Yeah, I was really excited. In fact, this was a funny story too. So when I arrived in Kelowna, I got to the bus, and the bus station in Kelowna is not, at least at the time, it was not downtown. I don't want to go on and on about Kelowna's urban planning issues, but in 2009, the main bus station in Kelowna was like a good 5 kilometers from downtown, right outside of Orchard Park Mall. And I had my big bag with me that I was traveling with. And I saw this shopping cart at the bus station. So I got off the bus and I thought, well, I don't again, I'm on a budget here. So I asked the lady if I said at the bus station, I said, hey, is anyone using that cart? She goes, no, in fact, get rid of it. We don't want it. I'm like, okay, great. So I popped my big heavy bag in the shopping cart. And there I was, just happy-go-lucky, just walking the shopping cart with my big ass bag down Highway 97, the main thoroughfare through Kelowna. And as I was heading toward downtown, I saw this radio station, 103.9 The Juice. And I was like, when I was researching Kelowna stations, I didn't see the station, but here it is right in front of me. Maybe I should go in. So the next day.
You were just walking past.
Well, the next day, I think I had, I got to the hostel where I was staying, and then I showed up the next day maybe a little more like undisheveled or whatever, and less sweaty from the long walk. And spontaneously was able to get an interview, and I had a few other interviews in Kelowna, and I had an interview in Vancouver and Victoria. But after I came back to Toronto a couple weeks later, and I sort of did a little what's what I'm looking for, like I just reflecting on all the connections I made. The best connection I had, the best opportunity was in Kelowna. So when I was back in Toronto, I said, hey, do you want to come work for us this summer in Kelowna? It was for a similar role. It was also to be the community reporter, but I felt like in Kelowna I had more opportunity to do more, because in Toronto there's so many roles, so many people, you kind of get pigeonholed. So I moved to Kelowna. This could be a whole other episode, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I just knew that Kelowna was not the city for me. Great place to visit. It was a bit of a tough place to live. And actually, in my things not working out in radio in Kelowna, I decided to go back to school. And I went back to UBC Okanagan, partially because I was applying to the UBC journalism school. I think I'm giving you way too much detail here.
No, it's good, because you never know who's gonna watch, and they're like interested. I think
I'm sure my parents would like to watch this.
There you go.
Audience of one.
But I feel like there's people out there who, I get questions all the time about how did you get started. For me, I have a very different path, because like I barely graduated high school. And I've studied yoga, I've taken acting classes, but I somehow got into TV production. I didn't learn TV production. And I've worked like behind the scenes on film sets, and I think my mind works really well in producing and directing. It's just like a natural like gift. I have another friend who I brought on this show, and she's developing an app and was like 40 Under 40, has like documentaries on like on CBC and like all those, like done really well, like won a lot of awards, barely graduated high school. So it's like I just feel like everyone's way of learning and paths are different. Like I am not a good student.
Well, it sounds like you're a good student of life.
Yes,
you're a good student of hustling.
Yes. And especially it helps me to have good friends, like people that I know who have conversations like the conversation we were having earlier, which we will kind of dig into, because I think like a lot of being, you're doing the community reporting, you have your production company, you're doing all this work, friends quarters, this and that, which we'll dig into, but it requires a lot of the inner mindset, because this is being self-employed. So that was part of the conversation we were having earlier, like the self-doubt and like the fears and, all those things that come up to surface. And, you know, they come up for all of us. Like,
Mhm.
you know, people ask me all the time, like, aren't you afraid of like speaking to an audience of 5,000 or 1,000 or filming live or this and that? And I'm like, yeah, I feel the fear, but I just jump in because I don't want to look back and have regrets.
Totally.
You know, I
Totally.
don't want to be a person who had regrets.
Hmm. Yeah. I think from a young age, I knew that I wanted to use my voice in some capacity, and it's evolved over time. Like I thought it was radio at first, and then I thought maybe it was sports reporting, and then I thought maybe it was then I thought it was music reporting. Again, working in radio. Community reporting is kind of what I found. Oh, speaking of music reporting, that's nice music.
Oh my god!
Suddenly playing in the
I
background.
know! Oh my goodness! Okay. Where is this coming from? I'm like shocked. It just started out of like nowhere. Oh my, how do you figure this out? I'm so confused.
Those that can't, there's like lovely, slow piano jazz music playing in the background.
Yeah.
It just suddenly started, and it definitely was a nice background, but it's a little bit loud for us to actually hear this conversation. without
Yeah.
addressing it. So
I think this
we
will be
appreciate
a,
your patience, folks.
this will be a moment that will be sent to the editor for sure.
Probably my lengthy version of my Corona story. We'll have to send editors, but we can probably cut that down.
I'm just so confused.
If we turn the volume down on the laptop, it's still picking.
Oh yeah, because we're recording here.
Okay. We could just do that.
I've like
Not as well
canceled all the other.
background.
No, I think it's just like music. It's just going. Yeah. And I think the way Telus is, like I can't really with the live streaming, I can't really play other music. I'm so sorry.
I'll give it a bit.
Okay.
I think we just maybe lower the volume a little bit. We can see this nice background.
Okay. I can't though. I have to end this stream and then no, but I'll use like